We can call it spiritual alchemy. We can call it transmutation. We can call it the fluidity of emotions, whatever we want to call it. But it's this concept of being able to transform one emotion to the other, right? Everything is fluid. Everything can change. Everything can move. It's not fixed. The actual scientific process of alchemy is the idea of turning base metals into gold. If you translate that to kind of like a self-realization process, it's that. It's base metals, anger, fear, blah, stuck energy in your body to gold. To power, to enlightenment, to bliss, to opportunity. For those who are deep enough to get it,
but profound enough to not care.
You're listening to Consciously Unconscious. Good.
Do I look like a janitor?
You could be giving janitor, but I think we're not
Janitorial
supposed to
vibes.
call them janitors.
What are we supposed to call them now? Maintenance people?
Yes.
Maintenance men?
Yes.
And women?
And just
Everyone in
maintenance
between?
people.
Maintenance people?
Yeah.
Are we sure about that? We might have to fact check that one.
I don't know if this is a great way to start an episode. Anyways, welcome back. Consciously Unconscious. You know, a question that I've been getting asked recently is, who came up with the name? Do you want to tell the people?
Me?
No.
Yes, dude.
Literally not true.
Let me hear your story.
We were at work.
Yeah.
We're coming up with the concept of the pod. We go to iPoppy after work.
A puppy.
E papa. So you had your journal. You were writing things down. I came up with the paradox of something and the other. And I said that I wanted to have the word consciousness in it.
Yes, and then we landed on consciously disconnected. Do you remember that?
Ew, that's terrible.
Awful.
Except, you know, it's pretty hard to spell our name.
This pillow is interesting.
Oh, you don't like it?
No, but then, so we landed on consciously disconnected. We made the Instagram. I still have it on my Instagram.
Consciously Disconnected.
Pod. Then I was like, something's not landing. And I remember driving in the car and thinking of the paradox idea and voice memo you and be like, we should do consciously unconscious.
Oh, so it was you.
Yeah, the unconscious was me.
Oh.
But the conscious was you.
It's a perfect split, baby.
Split.
Wow.
Who asked you about the name?
Just some people that are inquiring minds.
Maintenance people?
Yes. they are definitely curious.
Yeah.
They need something to listen to while they mop.
Absolutely they do.
Have you ever mopped?
No. And you know what I absolutely hate? Sweeping.
Who's sweeping if you own a vacuum?
Right? Lucas sweeps. Do you sweep? Do you mop?
I don't even own a sweep.
Have you ever mopped? The dance, the mop.
Swifford.
Yeah.
I Swiffer.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Silver Plume?
In Colorado?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So this past weekend, we were in Keystone, me and Lucas and the kids, with some friends. And we drove home and we needed to get coffee, naturally. But coffee in Keystone kind of sucks. So I found this little coffee shop called Plume Coffee Bar. And I was like, oh my God, we got to go. It's near Georgetown. Let's go.
So cute.
And it looked so cute inside. And so we pull up. I mean, you know the little mountain towns in Colorado that are...
We got to set the stage for people. It's like old Western mining towns.
Yes.
Like one main street, classic kind of like saloon, you know.
One post office.
It's really...
Yeah.
Yeah.
A sign on the side of a building that just says bread.
Yes. Love that.
Yeah. And so
the simple things in
This
life.
coffee shop was adorable. I mean, they really hit the nail on the head with being the only coffee shop in Silver Plume.
They're capitalizing on the right market.
Yeah. And they had like make a friendship bracelet there.
What?
Like they
That's
had
so
beads
cute.
there that you could make. So then we got our coffee and the kids were making beads, and then they had books and they had games. And that's another thing. Like bring board games back.
Totally. I'm a big game person. I love playing games.
What board game is your favorite?
I'm more of a card game person. There's a game called Code Names. Have you played that?
Yes.
Really fun. I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna land on classic Monopoly or like Sorry or Scrabble. Oh, you know what is my favorite? It's technically not a board game, but I'm super good at bananagrams.
We should play. I love bananagrams.
Dude, I'm hella good at bananagrams because I am hella literate.
Yeah. Hella literate.
Hella literate.
Bananagrams is great. You know where I discovered that first was at Taylor and Jamie's Airbnb.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also really puts you in a state of like, I really need to know someone's level of competitiveness to get a full picture of who they are. If you're not competitive, I don't know. There's something passive about you. There's something really unchill about you.
Something passive is the perfect way to describe somebody who's not competitive.
Like,
Perfect.
It's what do you get excited
for?
about?
What do you live for?
Yeah. If you're not trying to win a game, dude.
Yo,
I
where are
need
your morals?
the
Where do you
psychology
stand?
of that. I
For
need
sure.
someone to therapize that.
Yeah, do you think that's really just somebody who's super secure with themselves and is like, you win some, you lose some?
Probably, but it's also not necessarily about security.
But,
I
like,
think
tying
it's
their
about
worth
disengagement. Like,
outcomes.
commit to the bit. If you're playing a game, win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, facts.
Be
Win
the
the game.
best.
What do you think about participation trophies?
That's fine. I mean, everyone deserves recognition, right? Like, everyone can get a participation trophy, but there's still always a winner.
No, I'm talking about like participation trophies in place of like winning and losing.
Oh, is this our socialistic way to give everyone a chance to feel something?
Well, it's a thing now that people do for young children.
I get it, but I do think there is a healthy installation of competition.
Yes.
When people are winners and losers.
For sure.
And, everyone's a winner if you are trying and participating. So there's the participation trophy. But
I don't know if I agree with that.
do think that it teaches people young. There is hierarchy, whether or not we want there to be.
That's the thing. It's like if you're not teaching people young how to play the game and win at it, then you're setting them up for failure.
I think there are other ways to win than just who has the most points.
For sure.
But I think that there's a time and a place for both to be celebrated.
I think what's interesting is the trajectory from like athlete to business person.
What? Okay. Why?
Athletes, I think, are such powerhouses, and specifically like sales.
Drive, motivation.
Yes, and because they're coachable.
Yeah.
And because they know how to fucking win.
But what we need to teach really is not necessarily the concept of like how to be competitive. It's how to accept any outcome. It's how to teach people not to be sore losers.
Yes. 100%.
Like, you should want to win, but then be able to accept it if you can't.
You know what's so funny about that is that Lennox is such a sore fucking loser, dude. If he loses in Candyland, which by the way, I'm like, bud, this is a game of luck, not skill. There's no way you could possibly...
Chutes and ladders.
Yeah, that's a great game.
Yeah.
There's no way you could possibly like be good at this game. It's just pure luck. If he is losing, he literally will wipe all of our little pegs out of the way.
Oh yeah, he'll flip the table.
Just like, I'm done. Can't play it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, kids are sore losers, but I think they have to be taught that there's a balance. Like, you can still have the drive and the competition to win, but like, you have to accept any outcome.
Well, what's so interesting is I think jiu-jitsu has helped with that.
Nice.
Because there are moments, I mean, he's in a class with 4 to 7 year olds, so there are moments when he just like gets laid out on his fucking back.
For sure.
By this 7-year-old
Humbling.
boss. And he gets up and you know what he does? Immediately just high fives. That was great.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, dude, why does that translate to Candyland?
Do you know, I mean, you have one, so you do know. I've been coming into contact with a lot of 2-year-olds recently. People like bringing them into work, people showing me pictures. Like, in the last week, I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations about 2-year-olds. Like, 2 years is not a long time on planet Earth, but these children are highly developed and they're big.
Yeah.
They're like
30 pounds.
They're big.
Yeah.
Big boy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why in my mind I picture a 2-year-old as like
Little.
Like little. Like,
It
you're
makes
just
sense.
2 years old.
I mean, they are still babies though. That's the thing.
Is your phone vibrating on the couch, or am I schizophrenic?
No, you're schizophrenic.
Okay, well, something's vibrating.
No, they are still babies. That's the thing, because they have baby like tendencies, but then they'll just like speak a full sentence. Or I'm like, hey Ellis, will you please go get the remote in the living room and hand it to me? And he knows exactly what to do and where to get it. Or hey, can you go grab it off the Lazy Susan? He knows exactly what a Lazy Susan is.
Genius.
They're so developed, but they are kind of babies still. 2 is like one of my favorite ages.
Last week I went over to Amanda's house and hung out with the kids, which is one of my favorite things to do, to play auntie. And do you say auntie or auntie?
Okay. So if I'm saying that is my... I interchange them.
Okay.
Because sometimes I say, oh, my aunt Anne, or that's my aunt. Is that your aunt? But then sometimes I will say my auntie or my aunt. It's weird. I interchange.
Okay. She's versatile.
What do you say?
I say aunt.
Aunt.
I grew up aunt.
I grew up aunt too. I don't know when the switch happened.
Yeah. Well, I went to school in New Hampshire and Boston, and all of them say aunt. So I kind of picked that up in New England.
Got it.
I digress. I went over to play auntie, and I was looking around Amanda's house because really, if you come up with a story about anything, like you can convince a kid to lock in.
You know
to
what?
Anything.
We have to pause here because what you just said is so profound. Play is a child's love language. So
sure.
if you just make anything a game or anything a story, you've got them wrapped around your fucking finger.
But that's not just a love language for children. That's like a love language for life that we lose sight of. Like play is so important, that naivety, that just like, you know, childlike energy we need to carry through. That's a lesson for all of us, is think about how happy children are when they get to play and they get to make the mundane beautiful and playful. Learn something. Anyways, I found this like big rose quartz crystal, and we were doing spells around the crystal. Amanda was like, I don't know, cleaning the kitchen or some shit. And I was like, let me take the kids. Brought them into the living room, made them gather around the table, and we started casting spells on the crystal. And then they got in the bubble bath and they brought the crystals with them. And I was just like finding rocks and crystals, and every single crystal had a different spell. And so it's all about playing with them, but also psychologically manipulating them into them doing what you want.
Yes.
And so one of the crystals was a sleep crystal. This makes you very tired. I'm like trying to explain hypnosis.
And the thing is, Lennox is totally at that stage where he's like, no, you're not. No, it's not. It's not real. He's like in his denial phase, his denial era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we were tucking them into bed, and I don't know if we've talked about it on here, but Ellis has an attachment to things in his pockets. He's like a little bit of a hoarder. And
klepto.
Klepto for sure. And he made me bring all the crystals and lay them like next to his head.
Was that his idea or yours? Because I saw that.
His.
Dude, this kid will have the gnarliest shit. He has like a ring camera tool that he wants to sleep with.
Yeah, he's been playing with like a very sharp screwdriver for the last 4 times that I saw him, that he will not let go. And he's like, where's my tool?
And you know what he does now? I found one of those rocks last night, and he was like...
Yeah. Well,
and I was like, dude, I'm taking that rock away if you're going to eat it or you're going to put it in your mouth.
Do you want to know why they like it? Is because when they brought them in the bathtub, they both pissed in the bathtub. Rocks fell in the bathtub, got a little salty. They liked that.
Yeah, that is one thing that I let my children do, is pee in the bath, because if they're already peeing in the bath and the bath is full, I'm not going to drain it.
I'm pretty sure I peed in a bath like just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm not going to drain it.
Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, if I'm not going to get out and go sit on the toilet when I'm soaking wet.
But yeah, your butt is wet on the toilet seat. Yikes. That's the worst. When you get, okay, do you pee in pools?
Of course.
Yeah, because the worst thing in the world is getting out, shimmying down your wet.
Liar if you say that you're not pissing in a pool. I do have a fear every time I do it that it's going to squirt out blue and the whole thing and everyone's going to know. But you know what? In that case, I'd just be like, sorry.
This is how I go.
This is literally like crucifying me. I pissed in a pool. The chlorine is at 175%. My hair's falling out. My skin is peeling. Like, it's fine if I take a little waz.
Yeah. A little waz. Oh my God. Well, the whole reason I wanted to bring up Silver Plume was because I was wondering if you would ever live in a population 194 town.
No. If I do that, something's really wrong with me. You need to check in on me.
Well, what I said to Lucas is I could see myself, maybe not like Silver Plume status where it's literally 100 people, but I was saying to Lucas that my vision, my like goal would be to really work hard for 5 to 10 years and then not retire, but like retire to
in a mountain town
that is super communal. I don't have to drive anywhere. I can walk everywhere, and I can have a little provision shop or like coffee shop on the main street, and everyone knows me.
I see the vision. I fear that I am not ascended enough to be satisfied with such a simple life.
Well, you would still be at that moment, we would definitely be able to travel the world too. Like that would be our residence, but
Okay.
we could travel the world.
It's
We
one
could,
of the few.
yeah, we could experience life.
Yeah, I'd rather go to like Mallorca or like
You think?
the south of France or like Portugal. Like I'd rather go to like a small European town.
Yeah, I just then would miss my family. You know, like I really do think having children now, I don't see myself ever living out of the US for the rest of my life. Like I'll live outside of the US for a couple of years or like experiment. There's a lot of families that I've known and heard stories about who will take their kids to just like Spain for a year. They learn Spanish and then come back. Like I would so be down for that, but because a lot of my extended family is here and my brother's going to have kids one day.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see myself doing that for forever.
To each their own.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'll come visit you in Mallorca.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not at a place where you just can't conceptualize something that you can't conceptualize, right? You don't know what you don't know. So like, I don't know how I'm going to feel if I have babies or what that looks like or what that means, or as my parents age and their health changes and my brother, who fucking knows?
Yeah.
But I think that I could totally see myself as someone who is like, because to be honest with you, living in Colorado, my family in New York,
Same.
like I'm going to see them as much as I see them now. If I'm in Europe,
Yep.
they're still going to come out to visit me twice a year.
Yeah. What do you think is your favorite thing about Europe?
The fact that they don't live to work.
Yeah.
And the priorities are different of where you spend your time. A lot of European cities and countries value hanging out in the plaza and hanging out in the parks. They don't, their houses are small, their homes are small. They don't spend time in the home watching movies and like hanging out.
Yep.
And they go out. They're very like, they're patient with how they live their life. There's not this sense of urgency. There's not this sense of rushing around. I mean, the concept of sobremesa in Spain is after you eat, after you pay the check, you sit around that table for hours and you just chat, right? Like there's all those memes and all the jokes about having to like beg your waiter to come over and help you. But it's just because like people are just spending time hanging out. So I love the fact that the priorities are different. I love the fact that it really gives people an opportunity to be present and be aware of their surroundings. I think that politically and economically, they have different goals for how to function in society where more people benefit. So it's not necessarily socialism where everyone's equal, but they take care of their people collectively a little bit better. I think that instead of viewing like America's viewed as the land of economic opportunity, right? The American dream. So that's rooted into all of our priorities. Success in this way, I think because their economies are not as quote unquote advanced
Or even autonomous.
Yeah. People prioritize less of that. Like success and wealth in my life isn't what my job is.
Yep.
And so I think it just broadens your beingness.
Well, that's exactly it. I think it does shift your priorities into appreciating more of the humanness and the human experience versus the achieving side of things. But you're so right in the point that you made of like their houses are small, they live outside and like in their community.
They connect with their community.
I was
their
talking to my barista and he was like, yeah, my good friends just bought a house in Texas in like the middle of kind of this rundown area, but theirs is like a huge fucking mansion. And it's like a compound. Like they will never have to leave. And I was like, that feels so isolating and gross. Like I would rather live in an 800 square foot shack with my kids on a main historic street and be able to walk everywhere and be around people. Like I'm just not interested in having so much space for just myself. And
yeah. I mean, there's all different ways to live, right? The broad range of the way that people live out their lives is kind of crazy, whether it's a massive compound in Texas or whether it's a small little apartment in Barcelona or whether it's a shack on the beach in Portugal or whether it's a, mud village in Africa. Like sometimes people have choice, sometimes people don't, but there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's preference for sure. And I think being able to have preference is a privilege. But yeah, personally, I wouldn't go for that lifestyle either. I would go for integration, connection to my geographic environment, to my community, to other people, to the natural world.
Blue zone type shit.
Blue zone type shit.
You know what I want to know is how this beverage of the week is going to make me feel. Feel.
Yeah. So we haven't even really touched on the topic yet, but this is a perfect intro to it. So anger, emotions, frequency of emotions, how to transmute emotions into other things, how to alchemize, how to utilize some of these negatively connotated emotions to create positive change and transformation in your life is where we're going to go here. So for beverage of the week, I prepared a little number. Not a number in terms of singing, just a number in terms of beverage, you know. Uh-huh. So in your cup, in your mug, you have a very neutral base, hot water. You've got a little bit of lemon juice to represent some bitterness. Just a little bit of that like resentment, that bitter, that sour taste in your mouth that you get. We've got a little bit of cayenne pepper. A little spiciness, a little anger, a little just like claws out, a little bite, you know? All bark, no bite. You need a little bite.
Yep.
And right next to those cups is how we're going to alchemize. It's how we're going to transform that bitterness, that anger, that resentment into something that's a little softer, a little sweeter. We've got some maple syrup.
Ooh.
So we're going to take a little maple syrup, we're going to give it a dump, and we are going to utilize those negatively connotated emotions, those heavy, hard, scary emotions into something that is palatable, into something that will help us hydrate, replenish, transform, and transcend.
Obsessed. Wait, this actually sounds fire too to drink.
Probably is.
I'm really excited for this.
Wait, my nipples are going to come out.
Okay, well, she's going to transmute.
Wait,
and
hold on. I can't
start
do
an
it.
OnlyFans.
I've been thinking about that. I don't say that lightly, actually, because I would never, really. But would you pay for it?
Wait, am I just pouring it into both?
Just dump a little maple syrup right into each of them. Just a teeny alchemization of emotion. Beautiful. Anger turned sacred.
Okay.
Thank you, Papa. Cheers.
These mugs are actually so nice to hold.
Yeah, they're
Cheers.
really nice. They absorb a lot of the heat quite quickly, though. So your drink doesn't stay that warm for very long. The mug absorbs it all.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to sing.
Oh, wow.
Hottogogo, you can take the beverage to go.
Nice. It's not really a to-go mug, but
No, it's not, but it's hot
yeah.
and spicy and...
So as humans, one of those beautiful parts of our experiences is our sensation, is our emotions, is our feelings, right? Like,
This might make me need to go to the bathroom with this spice.
yeah, is yours really spicy?
Yeah. Is yours?
Mine's really lemony.
Mine's not.
The ratio was off. See, everyone's just a little bit different. I am going to set mine down, though.
Yeah, frequency of emotions. Let's
Yeah.
kick it off.
Yeah. So this idea that we all have our own individual frequencies and our
Yep.
own experienced emotions, but that there's this red thread of connection where we can each understand what it feels like to experience guilt, what it feels like to experience grief, what it feels like to experience bliss and euphoria and joy and whatever. Like, we've got this spectrum where, if you go back to our words are powerful and limiting episode, we know that the way that we label the emotions, the way that we call them good, bad, anger, fear, grief, happiness, is not totally representative of how they feel in our body and what they mean, right? And so the combination of all of them has been categorized into, this is good, you should feel this. This is bad, you shouldn't feel this. Which, when we put them into categories and classes that tell us should and shouldn't, that's what creates stagnation when we try to avoid the shouldn'ts. Mm-hmm. And so what's really important is that we cultivate this power, this ability to transform and transmute energies and frequencies that are heavier, that are darker, into the good, right? Instead of just bottling these up, getting rid of them, ignoring them, treating them like they're evil, taking that, literally alchemizing, transforming them into power.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, again, like Jess is saying, the negative emotions are not evil. They're important and you do need to feel them. However, I think where you can run into situations where you're not maybe acting as your best self, or you're not acting out of truth, or maybe a little bit more of like that neutrality, is when you don't transmute the energy and you just act from that place of anger and rage and shame. And the way that I like to think about it is similar to what we were talking about in the language episode, but I like to think about it as like the gasoline, the fuel for your car. So you are your car, right? But what you put in your car, the quality of the fuel that you put into your car, is the emotions, is the beliefs, is the thoughts that then allow you to drive, right? So your emotions, your beliefs, your thoughts are what allow you to behave a certain way. And so all of these emotions across the spectrum, across the chart, are important. However, you get to choose which one you want to act out of to be able to create your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to discern if anger is going to be a big topic of conversation here. And we'll talk about a lot of emotions on the frequency chart, and we'll go into the frequency chart. But the difference between like reactive emotions, reactive anger, and like sacred emotions, sacred anger. And so reactive anger is very egoic. It's very impulsive. It's very like knee-jerk reaction, explosive, and then creates further harm in your life because you act out of a place where it's just like completely unconscious. I'm mad. I'm going to act mad. I'm going to destruct things around me because of it. And that is the evilness. That's the darkness of unchanneled anger.
I was reading something that said the moment that you feel you have lost it, you have already overreacted.
Yes. It's almost like a blackout period where you kind of come to after you've done something completely fucking crazy. And then you're like, whoa, I was not there for a second.
And you know what? Like the thing that's misleading is that feels good to do sometimes. Sometimes it feels really good to let the bottle cap unscrew and just fucking explode.
And just flip the fuck out.
Sometimes it feels really good because most likely you've been suppressing that and it needs to come out. However, it's about being proactive, allowing space and time for those feelings to be felt so that they don't come out in moments where they don't need to.
Yeah. Do you think it's realistic to ask the question, if you don't allow them to bottle up, would you have those explosive rage fits? Or are those natural and inherent and you just need to learn how to deal with them?
I think sometimes they're natural and inherent, especially if it's in the moment and something really fucked up happens and pisses you off. Like, I think it can be really inherent. However, I genuinely feel like if I didn't bottle shit up sometimes, I would not have explosive reactions.
Maybe the frequency lessens.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I think that anger is also a really learned behavior.
1000%.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. Keep talking.
Just speaking from personal experience, like I didn't grow up in a very angry household. And so to me, that wasn't a way that I learned to channel a response when something wasn't going my way. Unfortunately, my channeled response to when things aren't working or when I'm feeling overwhelmed or when I'm feeling targeted or stressed is like to break down and cry.
Yeah.
I shut down. And a lot of people grow up in households or witness explosive responses that are fueled by resentment and anger. And so they learn based on example, that's how to respond when I don't feel satisfied.
Mm-hmm. That was my experience growing up. It was, on the one hand, nothing was really ever bottled up, which I appreciate. On the other hand, something that I don't appreciate was like this blame or projection that always came out in the form of anger.
Yeah.
From 0 to 100 sometimes. And now raising children, it's something that I have noticed that it is a learned behavior. And something that I'm so happy I now have the knowledge and the language for, and in the ability to alchemize, to transmute, to create a different reaction, because that's not something that I want to pass down to my kids.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be super reactive where they feel like they cannot control their emotions, or they don't have a handle on them, where it's just kind of like they're, a basket case, or like
Sure.
they can't, they're not to be relied on, or they can't control their emotions. And I think that the one thing that is so crucial is, like, early on, tantruming is such a part of life. It's such a part of the development of children. However, the way that you react to that as a parent is directly teaching them how to regulate their emotions moving forward.
Yeah.
And express them.
And when you have these explosive anger fits that we're talking about, or just like uncontrolled emotion, right? Unharnessed emotion, where it's just like, blah, I'm pissed off, I'm resentful, I'm angry, I'm fearful, whatever it's coming from. It's almost the analogy of a boomerang, right? You're fucking chucking it, and then you don't realize that it's going to come back and it's going to hit you in the face.
Yep.
Because if you are a conscious human, if you are someone who understands and can kind of come out of that blackout period afterwards, you're going to get hit with the boomerang of guilt and shame of, oh, why did I just react like that? That did not do anyone any favors. It didn't do me any favors. It didn't do the people around me any favors. And now I'm reaping the consequences of my own actions that I just took. And so it's like, you always have to think about it as, yeah, it might feel really good to throw the fucking boomerang, but you have to be prepared to catch it when it comes back, instead of just getting blindly hit by it. Like, if you do something in life, regardless if it's emotionally fueled, you have to prepare yourself for whatever response, reaction, consequence comes from that. That's taking accountability. That's taking responsibility. And so I think maybe the first step for people, if it's feeling like a really big jump from not having any of these bursts or outrage moments, is to, like, first step is admitting you have a problem, right? First step is the recognition, is to, okay, I did that.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand here and receive my consequences and catch the boomerang.
Yeah.
I'm going to try not to throw it again. I might, but instead of like...
Well, what's really important to differentiate there is not sliding down the slope of shame.
Yeah.
The only way that you will be able to change the reactivity or the behavior that anger presents and creates is by allowing yourself to lead with compassion and acceptance, instead of sliding into that shame spiral of, oh, fuck, I'm a terrible person because I reacted this way out of anger.
Sure. And unfortunately, it's just a natural human experience to want to take the path of least resistance. And sometimes the path of least resistance is taking the slide down with gravity. It's not walking up the stairs. It's not taking the hike to the top of the mountain. It's sliding down. And if we're talking about the frequency of emotions chart by, what's his name? David?
I don't know his name.
Hawkins.
We'll link it. David Hawkins.
I don't know.
That sounds incredibly wrong, but we'll roll with it.
If you've ever seen the frequency of emotions chart, it's a hierarchical chart that's categorized by color and by labeling these emotions as higher resonance and lower resonance. And the lower frequency you have, the more stuck you are, the harder it is to get out of. And then you kind of like climb your way up. So at the very, 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 very bottom of the chart is shame and guilt. At the very, very top of the chart is what? Like
enlightenment, joy,
yeah,
peace.
Yep. Acceptance. Pull up the chart. Let's see.
Yeah, because there's actually something up there that is really interesting that people might not think would be up there. So the top is enlightenment, then it's peace, joy, love, reason, acceptance, willingness, neutrality.
Reason? Let's talk through that.
Reason.
What do you think that means?
Does that mean logic?
Can I see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would associate reason with logic, but maybe it's just kind of like the logic of understanding a scenario enough to like cultivate gratitude and love from it. Does that even make sense?
Maybe it's like purpose.
Reason.
Like having a reason.
That's it.
Maybe.
That's an interesting word that they would choose. Why wouldn't they just choose purpose?
I don't know.
Well, it's interesting if we're comparing it with logic, because I was explaining the other day to you, I saw something that triggered me emotionally, like heartstring. My emotions felt resentment, jealousy, anger, lower vibratory fields. But logically, with reason, I understood like why I shouldn't be feeling those things.
Which is also kind of a double-edged sword. Because a lot of the time, your mind can talk you out of the reasons why you shouldn't be feeling a certain way,
Yes.
which is entirely unhelpful.
Or why you should be. Like,
Yeah.
we try to rationalize a lot, which is
Yeah.
why that's funny, because that, to me, doesn't necessarily feel resonant of being towards the top. I would feel like logic would be lower on an emotional frequency scale, because I think that we have limited ourselves by always trying to analyze, label,
Yeah.
use logic and reason to say why you feel a certain way.
Yeah. And when we mean like higher on the chart, it means like these are more expansive feelings, like feelings that make you feel expanded versus feelings that make you feel contracted, which are the shame, the guilt, the pride. Pride is a huge one on there. Pride is a really interesting,
Pride is at the bottom.
it's like more in the middle, but more towards the bottom.
Why do you think?
Yeah. It's right under courage. It's right above anger. Pride is right above anger.
Interesting. Let's break that down.
I know exactly why.
Tell the people.
I know why.
I know when I'm gatekeeping.
Because pride is limiting. Because pride is kind of, I think you could correlate it with entitlement. My way is better. What I am is best. What I know is best. I can't possibly do it differently, or I can't possibly change. I'm too prideful. It's very limiting. It limits you from learning how to do anything else. It's the idea of...
It's kind of like pigeonholing a perspective of this is the right way.
People who are very prideful are very averse to learning something new because they don't feel comfortable saying, I don't know.
I can see that. I can totally see that. That's a really great point. What do you think about the concept of someone being proud of someone else? I'm so proud of you.
Love.
I'm so proud of you.
Love.
Because that's pride too. And that also feels like that proudness of you and your success translates to gratitude, translates to perspective, translates to love, capital L. Like, I'm genuinely so proud of you.
You know what's so interesting though? Is like, I think my parents did a really good job at telling me and my siblings that they were proud of us, especially because we were athletes. And so anytime we did well, they would just say, I'm so proud of you. I rarely find myself telling my children that. Like, I definitely have told my children that, but like, that's not something
that's not true. I hear you say that all the time. Good job, buddy. I'm so proud of you.
Yes,
Maybe you
but
don't
it's
use
more,
the words "I'm proud of you," but you celebrate their wins for sure.
For sure, I celebrate their wins, but I feel like almost saying I'm proud of you makes the win about you and not about them.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I'm proud of you.
Yeah,
because
like my pride means something.
you are doing something that satisfies me.
Yes. It's not necessarily like a universal.
Well, it's conditional. It's conditional.
Yes.
Should we abolish the saying "I'm proud of you"?
Maybe.
What else could we say that signifies
You did such a good job, or describing the pride, how, like, why I feel that way.
No, but it's not about why you feel that way.
But I think it's a start. Like, okay, if Lennox has been going poop in his pants, and then he finally goes poop on the potty, I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Good job. Maybe that's me saying, you were so courageous there.
Yeah.
You were so courageous for knowing you had to go to the bathroom, so you went on the toilet. That was so brave of you.
Yep.
Good job.
Love that.
Instead of, I'm so what does proud mean? Like, what does that even fucking mean? And then you just want to make your parents proud. The fuck does that mean?
Make them satisfied with your actions.
What? Because their feelings are more important than yours?
In an authority relationship, that's what it feels like sometimes. Parents who want to be proud of their children for specific things that they do, I think that comes from a relationship that is determined as like, I am your authority figure. And so what you will do will satisfy me and make me proud, whether that's grades, whether that's sports, whether that's art, whatever people expect their child to perform highly at. That is really coming from a parent who has exhibited, you are below me.
Yeah.
And I think that this is an interesting conversation, maybe coming from you as a parent is that there's this balance of wanting to portray yourself as an authority figure, because you do have to establish some semblance of, you have to listen to me.
And respect.
Yeah. But where does the conversation come in about, like, in what scenarios do you treat your children like equals?
Well, that's so fascinating because, and now that I'm thinking about it, I do remember seeing something, whether it was in like a child book, development book or something, but people were discussing the pride conversation of like, tell your kids, like, instead of I'm so proud of you, ask, are you so proud of yourself? To flip the script. Sweet. So that's not, again, your judgment in what's satisfying you, it's satisfying them. However, my parents growing up used to always say, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent.
Really?
I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. Yeah, always. Which I understand what they were trying to say. And I do understand the risk there, right? Is you do want to establish, again, some of that like authority over them while also nourishing and encouraging their own independence and their own growth. I don't think I would ever tell my kids, I'm your parent, not your friend. I don't really know that language is helpful. However, I think that I don't necessarily want them to look at me as a friend. I want them to look at me as like an equal participant in this life.
Sure. I think inherently they do, just based on the dynamics of a household and how you're feeding them and bathing them and putting them to bed. I mean, you can establish a sense of authority and respect without having to demand it verbally.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Mom keeps me safe. She's going to show me that she keeps me safe, and therefore I'm inherently going to respect her or listen to her.
I'm so fascinated when I have kids what that's going to look like.
You're going to be a great mom.
I am watching all of my friends around me now, not all of them, but like, you know, you hit a point in your late 20s where people start having kids or really talking about the fact like, you know, my partner and I are ready and we're trying. And I just am like so far from that, you guys. And who knows? Like, I also feel like I could be the person who just like accidentally gets pregnant and is like, all right, I guess. I don't want to manifest that because I want to be a 2030s mommy, not a 2020s mommy. But I am watching not only people's personal narrative change about who they are and how they show up as a parent, but also just like, a lot of my friends are very, very natural in this like gentle parenting, just like we're just hanging out. Like there's a little bit less pressure that I feel like I see with newer parents nowadays than with parents before who maybe tried to follow closer to a rule book of like, this is how you parent. This is how you gain respect. This is what I need to be doing with my children. This is how I'm going to teach them that, you know, success is important and pride is important and blah, blah, blah.
Well, we come from generations of people who really, and I'm not speaking for like our parents directly, but maybe like their parents ahead of them. It was very much a culture of like children should be seen and not heard. And I think that has completely shifted because we realized that we were not heard and we have a lot of wounds around that. Yeah. And so now I think everybody is conscious of creating an open dialogue and a safe space to feel their emotions. And I think that's why it's so interesting to me watching my children have emotions and big feelings and also asking myself how that makes me feel. And like, it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes, but I'm like, I want to always instill the free space to feel emotions. Yeah. Because I think it translates to adulthood and your emotional regulation versus reactivity. I mean, like now, Ellis, because I'm trying really hard with Lennox right now because he is just a big feeler. And we've gotten to a really good place where he can voice how he's feeling and he doesn't react as aggressive anymore. But it's interesting because Ellis hasn't really hit like the stage that Lennox is at right now. And he's so absorbent, like he's such a sponge that now he'll literally be like, I'm like, what are you feeling? And he's like, mad. And I'm like, well, what can you do when you feel mad? He goes, scream into a pillow. And so sometimes he'll literally just go, before I even say it, he'll just go and scream into a pillow.
And he's two.
And it's like, so funny though.
Interesting. I want to go back to the chart and kind of take it away from this familial parenting lens. There's something on that chart that's a really interesting quote unquote frequency / emotion, and it's willingness. And I want to talk about the concept of willingness and like breaking down not only just the word, what does it mean to be willing, But like why that's put, because it's put right smack dab in the middle of the chart, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite close to neutrality.
It's above neutrality.
Okay. So it's more
Yeah,
ascended.
it's right under acceptance.
Okay. Yeah, you have to be willing to accept. That makes sense. That's a logical order.
Yeah, but it's interesting because when you were saying willingness, it made me think about capability. But then I think it's more than capability because, yeah, we're all capable, but are we all willing to be capable?
Well, and you don't even need to be capable to be willing. Think about
True.
a relationship
True.
with someone. You're struggling in your romantic relationship. You're identifying, you're having good conversation about problems that you're having. And you're saying, hey, I really need X, Y, and Z from you. The only thing that you want your partner to say back, if they really mean what they say, right, is that I'm willing to change for you.
Yeah.
I might not be capable right now, but I'm willing to do these things differently and work to be capable. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like willingness precedes capability.
Yes.
Because in order to be capable, you have had to have been willing
True.
to try.
Because I was thinking about it in the context of like running a marathon. Is like, you might be willing to run fucking 13 miles or 26 miles, but are you actually capable? Probably not if you haven't trained, but if you're willing to do it,
Interesting.
you can.
Yeah. I mean, maybe your physical limitations like definitely get in the way. But are they mutually exclusive? Like if you're really that willing to run a marathon,
You're capable of it.
yeah,
Right?
probably.
Is that all it is?
Because willingness will lead you to train. Willingness will lead you to be mentally committed and locked in. Willingness will lead you to say, this is what I am willing to achieve.
It's kind of a catch-22 because I think like you have to be being capable, knowing that you're capable sometimes encourages the willingness.
Let's talk about the saying to will something into existence.
To manifest it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To will something into existence. Now, just saying the word will is like not making sense. When you say something over and over and you're like, will. Like we just have created these such arbitrary sounds to mean things.
Yeah. But that is an interesting placement of willingness because actually, no, it makes sense to me because I think willingness is inherently a positive thing.
Yes.
Like the willingness is almost like
for
this
sure.
motivation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Willingness is 100% positive.
But the way that I view transmuting energy or like alchemizing, I almost said alkalizing, is what's really interesting is sometimes the quickest way to jump up into that like expansive feeling is by going into acceptance, which is right above willingness. Mm-hmm. So like say that you are feeling really shameful or prideful. The quicker that you just accept that you're feeling these things, the easier it's going to be to get into these feelings of peace and joy and enlightenment. Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting that sometimes it really is just about having the willingness to accept the way that you feel.
Yeah. Let's get into spiritual alchemy.
Yeah.
We can call it spiritual alchemy. We can call it transmutation. We can call it the fluidity of emotions, whatever we want to call it. But it's this concept of being able to transform one emotion to the other. So if we're now in 2025 thinking of everything on a fucking spectrum, right? Everything is fluid. Everything can change. Everything can move. It's not fixed. Alchemy, like the actual scientific process of alchemy, is the idea of turning base metals into gold through like heat and oxygenation. And I don't exactly know how. But if you translate that to kind of like a self-realization process and like a soul level, emotional level process, it's base metals, anger, fear, blah, stuck energy in your body to gold, to power, to enlightenment, to bliss, to opportunity. And so there's a 7-step process to alchemizing and turning your emotions into these higher states. And so I'm going to take us through each of them. We can kind of break them down because they're interesting. Some might need more explanation than others. But so the first step is calcination, which is equivalent to breaking down the ego. So burning away illusions and attachments and like conditioned beliefs. And this says that it's often triggered by a major life event, loss, heartbreak, existential crisis that forces the ego to dissolve. So in emotions, anger is the catalyst here. So think about, what do they call that? The stages of grief. Have you heard of the stages of grief?
Like the seven, like what?
There's sociological, psychological study that it talks about the stages of grief. And the first one is denial. And the second one is anger. And the third one is, that's really interesting. We should get into that when I have a little bit more information
and then, like, acceptance and then, yeah. I've heard
it's
this.
basically moving. They label it, I think the first rendition of it was done in a linear fashion, and they've turned it more cyclical where you're not necessarily just moving through them 1 through 5.
Yeah.
But one of the main phases of what this is talking about, a major life event, let's say the loss of a human. A big feeling that you're going to feel is anger.
Yeah.
Why? What the fuck? Who? Why do I deserve this? Why did they deserve this? What? Like, there's just resentment. There's anger. And so
that's interesting. It's like, why do we inherently feel the need to point the finger and like, maybe it's not just us trying to make sense of it, rationalize it.
Right.
There has to be someone to blame for this.
Right.
Some reason.
And that's the ego.
Yeah.
So that's step 1, is breaking down the ego and identifying that's where this comes from.
Got it.
Step 2 is dissolution. So that's really the action step of letting go of control. So once the ego breaks down, then old structures begin dissolving. So this is the surrendering phase, realizing that your control over these emotions is like, you have maybe not control of how they come up, but control of how to utilize them for good. Like, utilize your emotions for good, not evil.
Yeah.
So instead of suppressing it, like allowing yourself to feel it without resistance, we move into separation. So this is interesting. This goes back to our conversation, like the discernment of what emotion is truly yours versus what is conditioned or learned. Mm-hmm. And sorting through your belief systems and your emotional baggage and asking yourself, is this anger truly mine or is it inherited? Is this shame really based on truth or was it given to me by society? Like, asking yourself the questions, separating what's yours and what got handed to you. A few more. 4 is conjunction. So it's interesting because the language that they use in this is the merging of the conscious and the unconscious mind. So in emotions, this is where anger becomes sacred rage. This is the alchemy. This is the understanding that, like, anger is not necessarily good or bad. So back to the beginning of the episode, when we were saying that, like, labeling and categorizing is really limiting. This is the alchemization that I can direct this energy as a neutral energy, one that has power, but, like, let me not label it good or bad and let me direct it into step 5, which is called fermentation. So the birth of the new emotion, the birth of the new consciousness. So the death of the old emotion and the allowance of something higher to emerge. So this is the point where anger actually becomes the fuel, like you were talking about, the fuel for change rather than destruction. 2 more. Distillation. This is kind of like that refinement, that mastery of all the steps before. So being able to feel things without being controlled by it. And this says transforming reactive anger into wisdom, pain into purpose, and grief into love. So yeah, like, the refinement is basically understanding your capability, your willingness. It's all coming together. And the last one is the coagulation, is the actual final step of where the gold comes out of the base metals. It's the embodiment of the higher self. So this says the ultimate state of flow, where sacred rage becomes sacred action and suffering becomes wisdom. So this is like the full integration of all of the steps before. This is the final process, no longer identifying with your emotions, but allowing them to move through you as neutral waves. So that's kind of like a very broken down, step-by-step process of what alchemizing an emotion looks like and the opportunity that we have to utilize these emotions, like, as a joke, but, like, for good, not evil.
Did you say turning that into sacred rage? Is that what you said?
For the last one? Yeah.
let's break down what sacred rage is then. Like, what does that actually look like visually?
I mean, sacred rage is the idea that like in Hinduism and Buddhism, there's all these gods and goddesses of destruction. I think there's one, her name is Kali. Kali. In Hinduism, she's a goddess of destruction. But her whole premise is utilizing her anger, her rage, her passion, her power for embodiment, for enlightenment.
Well, it's also, I think anger is a huge catalyst for change.
Yeah.
I think that anger is mostly felt because there's this feeling of like injustice. There's this feeling of like unfairness, if we really want to break it down. And I think that it's not about getting rid of the anger.
No, anger is a really righteous emotion. We deserve to feel anger in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, the challenge is like the displaced anger. The anger that is, again, not maybe alchemized into something that can be channeled into the real like message and mission of what that feeling is bringing about.
It's the lack of clarity around why am I angry? Why am I resentful? Which is one of the steps in the alchemization, is understanding, is this rightfully my anger, or is this something that I'm just absorbing because I'm unconsciously taking on a belief from society or a learned behavior from my parents, or something that is like actually something really different. I'm feeling really lonely and sad and isolated, but my reaction is anger. Like the clarity around your anger, I think, is really what makes it sacred.
Well, I think that a lot of what you were speaking about too is projection, which I think a lot of us walk around doing all the fucking time.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And I'm not just like discluding myself from that. Like, I find myself often sometimes taking out my own shit onto Lucas. And I think it's so interesting how we like treat the people closest to us like sometimes the worst. Like, they get the worst versions of us. And I think there's something kind of beautiful about that because they feel safe with you. But then another part of it is like, what the fuck? And I experienced that kind of the other day too, because Lucas's friend came over, and Lucas works from home. Like, he doesn't see people all the time. And he really is like a social person, and like we all need to see people. And so his friend came over, and I mean, the 180 of Lucas's behavior and like the way that he, like his emotions to what it had been for that week was like so jarring to me. And I was like, this is fucking weird. Like,
yeah, and it can almost come off as fraudulent. Like, are you just like faking that you're in a good mood the second that a guest walks in the door, and then they leave, and then you're back to being an asshole to me? Like,
and so it's interesting because like, why do we give the worst version of ourselves sometimes to the people that we love the most? But I think it's because we're so comfortable to be ourselves. And I think that like, it's an interesting exercise to do. Like, who are the people in your life that you're the most comfortable with? What is your mood around them, or like your feelings around them, your behavior? That's like probably the most accurate status of how you are feeling currently. And it's interesting because Aristotle wrote this, or said this quote: anybody can become angry, that is easy, but to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power and is not easy.
yeah,
That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, that's like the 7 stages of alchemy summed up into one.
Yeah.
When you think about why you take your anger out on the people closest to you, because you're safe around them, because, you know, you take for granted that they'll never leave, whether it's family or a relationship or friends or whatever. It's the idea of a punching bag, like physically going to release, to let go, to utilize them as a strategy for your own good. But I think the hardest part that we need to remember is like the love for them should come from, or, you know, a part of the love for them should also come with the protection of, I'm not going to tear them down just to build myself up.
Well, and I do think too that there is this element of accountability that's really beautiful in partnership, especially long-term partnership too, because I do think that there is this element of like a wave of emotions. Like, sometimes you'll feel super fucking in love with your partner, and then other times you're like, we're just kind of like roommates right now or this week or whatever. And then super in love. And like, that's just such a wave. And I really do think that needs to be talked about more, because I think so many people end relationships because they feel like they're in lulls, and then they get in their head, and then they're, when sometimes it's just the way that it fucking is. And I think that the accountability that partners have with one another is super important, because you have an opportunity to show them like, hey, this can be a catalyst for you to change the way that you're feeling or change the way that you're behaving. But I think that we need to be like, that's also a form of love, is holding people accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we all need to be more comfortable telling our partners like, hey, this isn't working. Like, fix it. Fix it.
Yeah. It's the mirroring concept.
Yeah.
Again, like I'm referencing a lot of episodes, because if these conversations are interesting to you, we deep dive in more of these in other episodes. But in some of our relationship episodes, we talk about the concept of your partner being a mirror for you. And it's real easy to hold up a mirror and say, look at yourself. Look. But to like have them hold it back at you is really difficult. So like it's super easy to hold someone else accountable. Is it easy to accept that someone else is holding you accountable?
Right. And usually like it's both.
Yeah.
It's never just one person. But something that I'm really curious about, especially because shame is something that I think a lot of us feel, and a lot of the reason why we don't change. Do you think shame is necessary? I think a lot of the time people think about like, oh, we don't ever want to feel shame because it feels really like bad, and it feels really embarrassing, and it feels really whatever. But I think I'm so curious if it is necessary sometimes to feel, because specifically, did you see that thing on TikTok or Instagram with that girl Bonnie Blue, where she slept with like 1,000 men in 24 hours? I think she is a corn star. And she literally did a challenge. I think she did it for like a world record of having sex with 1,000 men in 24 hours. Yeah. And she was posting it all online, like so proud of it, like really, really excited about it. And people were like, we need to bring back shame.
I am speechless. And rarely am I left speechless.
So that kind of led me to ask the question, like, do you think we should bring back shame? What is the, because we have gotten to this point of like, people want to be shameless, like be shamelessly yourself, like,
Sure. I can see both sides to the same coin, or both sides.
She's stumbling over her words. She can't.
I'm like, that's fucking insane. I don't know what that says about the modern day world that we live in, but that's like really, really disturbing to me. And you know what? I never want to shame someone else for doing something that they feel shameless about.
What people are saying is like, bring back collective shame.
I will consistently sit on I'll die on the hill of non-duality, and the concept that like you need shame, guilt, resentment, anger, jealousy, fear, all these things to be able to feel bliss, euphoria, blah, blah, blah. So do I think it's important to experience that emotion? Absolutely. Do I also think it's really important to really be selective about where you victimize yourself in terms of feeling shameful?
That's actually a really important distinction, is the ability to say, is this shame mine or is it not? Because I do actually think that shame is a very natural feeling, and it's very subjective. What I'm shameful about is probably not what you're going to be shameful about.
Sure.
So it's like living our truth in shame.
Shame also comes from like different types of shame that each of us experience comes from expectations that you set for yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to feel shameful about something about myself unless I have an expectation that I should be or should do something differently.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of like, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say like I know a lot of people who were previously religious or born into religious families feel a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And again, that's like projected expectations on them.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, well, maybe that shame isn't helpful for you because it's not your truth.
The shamelessness comes from a dissolution of expectations.
And I think only from having the ability to feel the shame in the first place, to become shameless.
Well, yes, because it's this concept which another episode you should listen to is Our Desire and Fear Are the Same. I bring up this concept of witness consciousness and this idea that the irony of sitting in witness consciousness, which is this like higher state beyond the thinking mind, like into this quantum physics realm. This is where you quantum jump. This is where you like blah, blah, blah. You ascend in meditation. You are beyond your physical being. So you're in the state of witness conscious where you can envision it like, you know, you're above yourself looking down at yourself.
Yeah.
The irony is that you cannot be in a state of nobodiness, nothingness, no identification unless you came from someone who was something, who had an identity, who had a tangible being. So this idea of shame and shamelessness is that you can't be shameless unless you've experienced shame. You can't be shameless unless you understand the emotion of shame and guilt.
Yeah.
And
by the way, great show.
What? Shameless? Lip Gallagher? Gorgeous.
Yeah, I heard he actually isn't a great guy though.
Well,
but separating the art from the artist.
Maybe you should be shameful for that.
Yeah. What do you think about revenge?
Oh, God. I think it's such a natural human thing to want revenge because it's kind of just like it's gratification of the ego.
Yeah.
To get revenge on someone. It is totally feeding into a beast within yourself. Like it's pouring gasoline on an open fire.
Yeah, but they actually have done studies where they track someone's neural activity. I can't remember if they're like thinking of the idea of revenge or they're actually plotting the revenge. It's one of the two. And the area in their brain of the reward center lights up. It's like a reward. It's
sure,
like a reward.
Just the same way that it does when you do cocaine.
Literally.
Like it doesn't necessarily mean that because your reward center is lighting up, it's good for you. I wonder what psychologists would say about the concept of like your reward center and your actual neurological function connected to your, I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know either.
I just like lost it midway through. And you know why I lost it midway through? Are you ever in the middle of a thought and then like another thought comes in that you want to say more?
Yeah.
What I was going to say, I said something about like the psychological whatever. I had a conversation with someone the other day that said, and I've known this, but she just said it so blatantly and so clearly that psychology and the westernization of like a white bald man saying this is psychology is really spirituality. It's really like the concept that science and spirituality are the same thing. They're interchangeable. How do you feel about that?
I don't entirely agree with it. I see the perspective.
Yeah.
But I think to feel that way, you have to have a concept of spirituality. And I don't think everyone does.
You don't?
Mm-mm. No, not at all.
How do you define spirituality?
I think if you would say, like, I'm spiritual, there are people who would be like, what the fuck does that mean?
How would you define spiritual?
I would say a connection to a divinity, to a higher power. That's what I would say is spiritual. Or a connection to my own intuition and knowing that, like, what we tangibly see and know is not all that there is. A reliance on frequency and energy.
I would equate spirituality with curiosity. That's the only place that I would put it. Is that I would put spirituality as a sense of curiousness about yourself and your connection to your existence.
See, I actually don't think there's any curiosity in. Well, there is. I think for me though, instead of curiosity, it's almost a knowing. Like, I don't actually think spirituality for me is all about asking the questions. It's about having a deep knowing.
You think that knowing and curiosity is different?
Yes. No. Yes. I mean, I think to be curious, you have to know that there's something else there. To be curious about it.
I think that they're not mutually exclusive. I think that they're niche. I think that they're nuanced ways to describe a very similar thing, which is intuition. Curiosity, like the way that your curiosity takes you, those questions that you're asking yourself are very intuitive. Sometimes. Which is a knowingness. Maybe we're generalizing.
For me, I don't even have to ask questions to know. Do you know what I mean? In the lens of spirituality, I think the moments that I felt so in touch with my spirituality is understanding that questions, answers, none of it matters.
True. I don't disagree with that. But knowingness to me is inherently curious.
Well, yeah, again, non-duality.
Yeah. Well, but like not only non-duality, like I see knowingness as
like a door.
Let me see if I can describe this in a visual that might help. Like, think about the depths of your being, right? And like knowingness comes from like way in there, where it's just like, you don't need to ask the questions. You don't need to describe the answers. It's just like a knowingness. It's a sureness. It's very like,
it's almost like you don't even need to interact with it.
but curiosity lives in the same place for me. It's way in there. Like, it's way in there as this.
See, mine doesn't. Knowingness, I agree with you. I resonate with that. It's deep, deep, deep down. Curiosity lives somewhere here for me.
Interesting.
In like my heart space.
Isn't that where knowingness lives too?
No, my knowingness is like deep in my womb.
Knowingness is like a full body sensation for me. It's everywhere. It's all pervasive.
Yeah, knowingness is kind of also like in my feet. I'm like grounded.
Very interesting. Do you experience synesthesia? Hearing a smell, seeing a color, tasting a song.
Well, I can smell and then instantly be reminded of like a memory.
That's so interesting that you said that, because your olfactory nerve, biologically in neuroscience, I don't know, is the most connected to your like neural pathways that store memories. Your what is the part of your brain that stores memory?
I don't know.
Hippocampus. Your olfactory nerve has a direct connection, and so that's why smells are the quickest way to trigger memories.
Yesterday I was oh my God, that's so interesting. Yesterday I was feeling, you know the feeling after you finish a book?
Give me something else.
After you finish a book, you have almost this like instant nostalgia. And I think for some reason, nostalgia smells a certain way to me.
Oh, I so feel that. I love the feeling of nostalgia.
So do I.
Nostalgia is like melancholic in the best way.
It's like a rainy afternoon.
It's fall every year. That's why I love fall so much. That's why I think if I ever live somewhere where I don't experience a fall, that would be really, really hard for me to, I don't know, just mark time and really be in my sentimental, like emotive experience, because fall to me is so nostalgic. It's so melancholic. It's so like moody and obscure and like,
but also content.
Yeah, there's a contentment to this. Melancholy is also really a weird thing, because like it kind of comes off as like sad and slow and melancholic and like, but
well, you know
it's so beautiful.
It is, because I think it's feelings that we can only feel if we're deeply present, and I think that is why it's so beautiful, because every moment that I feel nostalgic for is a moment that I was deeply present in.
How lucky are we that we crave moments in our life that we've already lived?
Yeah.
That we miss things that we've already experienced, that we have nostalgia for our own experience, our own life. Like, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
That we can feel nostalgic over memories that we've made, that we've lived.
All I'm thinking about is the character Nostalgia in Inside Out 2.
Don't know it.
She's like this old granny. You know Inside Out?
Inside Out, yeah.
Yeah, well, they made an Inside Out 2 with anxiety, and they actually did a fantastic job, like, portraying that.
Genius
But they
concept.
also did like Nostalgia, and she's this little old granny that like comes out and like with cookies, like, oh
I love that.
She's adorable. Before we wrap, I want to ask, have you ever gotten revenge on somebody? Like actually plotted revenge and carried out revenge?
That's a good question. Have I actually plotted and gotten revenge? I've never been someone to like key someone's car or like egg someone's house, or, you know, like do like classic, I'm going to go physically enact revenge.
Right.
I think probably like I've sent some messages that were revenge messages that were like, you know, a response to something.
I hope a fucking meteor falls on your house.
That like I didn't need to send, you know, like I didn't need the last word, but that felt like revenge. Or, you know, I've never like slept with someone as revenge. I've never like done something at least what I can remember, that was like a physical act. I think that for me personally, my bark can be a little bit bigger than my bite sometimes. And yeah, like I'm impulsive for sure, but I don't know that I've ever done anything like extreme.
Yeah.
Have you?
I don't think so. I think I would remember if I did. I also am so that bitch though that like sleeps well at night knowing the universe is going to take care of them.
Yeah, karmic.
Like
lessons.
that's it. I am way more of a karma bitch than like I have to enact revenge. Like I really do feel like any person that I wish revenge on is going to get a karmic lesson because of that.
Well, I'll say it in every single episode, like the wanting revenge for someone, the holding on to resentment, the wanting an outcome that's like negative or poor for someone else is your fucking problem.
Yes.
You're the one holding the hot coal. You're burning your fucking hand by holding on to the coal of resentment and revenge. Like no one else gives a shit. That person's just going to go on living their life. The world goes on. Life goes on. You're the one sitting in suffering when you like crave that for someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trust that they'll spill their coffee on their white shirt when they leave for work.
That what's meant for you will find you, bitch.
And with that, thank you guys for listening. This episode felt really...
And with that, the 2025 season is over.
Who is that?
It's like a God damn it, it's a viral sound.
Okay, guys, thanks so much for listening. Leave us a review. Let us know if you've ever enacted revenge on somebody.
Yeah, take a peek at the consciousness chart. It's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and let us know what emotion you're currently feeling.
Love ya.
Love ya. Bye.
Bye.